Hi there, it's Paige with m.a.b.e.l, and today we're going to talk about Komebukuro. Komebukuro are Japanese rice pouches. They were made during the Meiji and Taisho eras, which is like the late 19th, early 20th centuries, and they were made from scraps of textiles from homes or kimono, and they were stitched together in that sashiko style or that running boro stitch to create these pouches that they then used to bring rice or beans or other dry goods to shrines and temples for offerings. So, in that spirit of Mottainai, which means not being wasteful, I decided to use my plethora of quilt scraps to make my own quilt Komebukuro. It is a super easy project, and I am going to show you how. My quilt Komebukuro consists of 5 quilt panels. Some are one complete piece of quilt, and some I've stitched together using a zigzag stitch. I've lined my Komebukuro in canvas. I've used some feed sack for the channeling, and then macrame cord to cinch it all shut. It's a super quick and easy sewing project, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So this is my small little studio at NextFab, and I keep my scraps in a variety of spots. But right here, these are my scrap pieces that are sort of big enough and usable enough. They're not really torn or shredded. And these are the ones that I will piece together to show you how to do zigzag to create a larger quilt piece. So this is my home machine. Yours might look a little different than mine, but most machines have a zigzag stitch, and that's the stitch that you're going to want to use to piece your quilt pieces together. On my machine, it's setting number 5, and then what I want to do is I want the zigzag to be really zigzaggy, so I take it up to like a 4.5, and then I want my zigzag stitch to be in the middle, so I'm going to put it at like 2.5. So that's the length of the zigzag, and this is the width of the zigzag. When I set up my pieces, I just abut them right next to each other. I do not overlap them. And my foot has a red dot, and I think most have some sort of marker which marks the center of where the needle is going down. So I want that red mark to be on that seam. I go back and forth 2 or 3 times just to make sure that the piece is nice and secure. All right, so you can see. So this is the piece that I would take and cut down to size, but luckily I have some prepared for the next step of our project. So these are the 4 pieces that I am going to use for the circumference of the bag, and this is the piece I am going to use for the bottom of the bag. What we are going to do is you are going to put 2 pieces right sides together. We're going to stitch at a 1/4 inch. We are going to set the machine back to straight stitch, and I am going to increase my stitch length to 3. So what I am going to do is stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from corner to corner, but I am starting and stopping about a 1/4 inch in at both ends, okay? You don't want to go all the way to the edge, and that will be clear in the next step. So now you have your 2 pieces together. It is not completely stitched at the edge. You will do this for all 4 pieces. I picked a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this project, but you really can use a seam allowance that works best for you. Just be consistent. A 1/4 inch is nice, but if you're working with thicker quilt pieces, you might want 3/8 or 5/8 or even a 1/2 inch. So it's totally up to you. Just stay consistent for both the quilt outer and the lining. All right, I have my 4 sides. Now I am going to sew from the corner to the top. I pinch the seam allowance together and I will stitch right over that. Again, I'm going to pinch that corner together. So here we have our outer piece. We are going to do the exact same thing for the canvas lining. Just like with the outer, you're going to sew all 4 pieces to the center piece, and then you're going to stitch up the sides and you'll end up with an open cube. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make the channeling for the macrame cord. These are 2.5 inches by 4.25 inches. I'm just going to fold over the edge and stitch it down with a straight stitch. And I do that for the remaining 3 pieces, 4 pieces all together. Once we have all the channel pieces hemmed in on the sides, I'm going to fold it in half and I am going to baste it. I'm just going to eyeball it to the middle of each panel. A basting stitch is just a long stitch, a long running stitch. So I'm going to turn my stitch length up to 5 and baste these 4 pieces. I line these pieces up as close to the edge of the quilt box as possible and stitch very close to the edge of the piece. So I have all the pieces sewn together just like I did with the outer. Now what I'm going to do is put right sides together. So I turned my outer so that the right side is on the inside, and I turned the lining so the right side is on the outside. And now I'm going to fit them together. You want them right sides together, and then I am going to use clips to line up the corner seams. And I'm going to spread the seams . And I am going to sew all the way around, but I'm going to leave a little bit of the perimeter open so I can turn the bag inside out. When I stitch, the quilt side will be down on the feed dogs. And I'm going to stitch at use the edge of my foot as the guide. So I think that's like a 3/8 seam allowance. I am turning the bag inside out through that little opening. And I pluff out the corners. I do the same for the lining. I then stuff the lining into the bag. Once I get the lining in the bag, I try to roll the seams towards the inside, and I just go around the entire bag and use my fingers, and I put some clips where it might be a little sticky, but I just want to make sure that the lining is on the lining side and the quilt is on the quilt side for the next portion when we top stitch around the entire perimeter and close that opening shut. So when the bag is like this, I am going to do one more top stitching seam along the perimeter to close up that gap right there. This time I am stitching really close to the edge. All right. As I go around, sometimes those corner seams are a little thick, and if you find it helpful, pull the piece from the back, and that just gives your presser foot a little bit of support as it tries to get over the hump that that seam might have created. That's one of the downfalls of working with quilts. They come in a variety of thicknesses, so whatever help you need to give your machine, go ahead and do that. To determine how much drawstring you might need, you can just loosely measure around the bag. Give yourself a couple more inches. And then cut. And then you can measure the second cord. This is 4mm macrame cord. And then, if you have a bodkin or a safety pin, start at one end. And just simply knot it. Take the other piece and start opposite. Ready? So there you have it, your very own quilt scrap Komebukuro. The perfect little pouch for your sewing projects, your knitting projects, any little thing you might need it for. You can even take rice to the temple for an offering. I hope this video has helped you see the process to make your own Komebukuro with your own quilt scraps or fabric scraps that you have lying around. I will be launching a kit as well, consisting of quilt scraps, the lining, the cording, and the channel pieces, and you can use this video as your tutorial. And later this summer, I'll be hosting a sew-along, and we can all make these together. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button and comment below if you've made your own Komebukuro or if you're thinking about making a Komebukuro. I'd love to see yours as well. Thanks so much. Bye now.